So, we are thinking of putting our kiddos in public school. And coming from the fact that they have been homeschooled their entire life, I just kind of wanted to take this time to kind of tell you what it is that I'm thinking and also hear any of your suggestions or advice on if you have kind of gone through a similar transition or what I can expect as a mom putting our kids in public school for the very first time. So I would love any help. But if we have not yet hung out, my name is Brianna. I'm a fellow mom and money coach, and here we talk about all things money and mom life from moms for moms. And today I have a question for you, but we'll of course get into that. But let's go ahead and dive into today's topic. So, as I mentioned, they have always been homeschooled. They are, so my first son is doing like the whole virtual homeschool, like program. And if this is something that you're interested in as far as like homeschooling, I would say that we have been super happy with the program. Like, we're not considering changing them because we don't feel like he's learning well, that we've been dissatisfied with the program that we have. I'll link it in the episode details for you below, but the program is called Power Homeschool, and it's been really awesome as a parent that like wanted to homeschool but felt so incredibly overwhelmed with the fact of like, oh my gosh, there's so many homeschool curriculums, like which one do I choose, like how do I then become a teacher, because like I'm not in a parenting profession. Not parenting, I'm not in the teacher profession, you know what I mean, I'm just a parent, and like wanting to make sure that I'm setting my sons up for the best success for them, but also like keeping them home in like our home environment. So I will say, like, one of the reasons we initially chose to go the route of homeschooling is because my husband had a very non-traditional job, and so that meant that like he would not ever see my sons if they went to a traditional like school experience because of the off hours that he worked. I knew that that wasn't the experience that I also wanted as a mom and as a parent. And at the time that we were really considering homeschool, I was also working remotely. So in my head, I was like, this ideal picture was my sons would sit down and they would do their schooling next to me while I'm working remotely, when they got to the age where they could do that. And then we would be able to go out as a family and do different experience and like really immerse our kids in like different like cultures and programs and diverse experiences. That was something that really drew me to the potential of doing homeschool, is like wanting to make sure that my kids had these experiences that I didn't have. My husband also came from a private school and public school background, and he really knew, kind of seeing some propensity that they might struggle with certain things in a school setting. In the home environment, we could like set them up for the best success for them to get the skills that they needed in the best fashion for them to be able to succeed. Like really customize the experience like you can do when you're homeschooling versus when you just put them in public school. And now we're to the point where we're kind of feeling like maybe this might be the best route for them. And as a parent, I'm like grappling with all of these concerns because they have been homeschooled. We have always been available to them should they need something. I know that I need to let them go, and if them being in public school, there's like going to be this natural progression of like letting them become their own person versus like if they were homeschooled, their entire educational career, and then they get to college, and then all of a sudden they're just like left out into the world. Like, that's a huge change. Whereas like this can allow them to like change gradually. And as parents, we can kind of guide them through different things that they're going to experience as kids. But the thing that my mom heart is dealing with is just the fact, like, if they immediately need something, like, I'm not going to be immediately available to be there to like care for that need. That's one of the things that I'm really struggling with, to know that it's not going to be me that is going to be the first responder to my son's needs, that it's going to be all of these other support people that are going to be there investing in their lives, but also trying to make sure that they succeed. But then I also look at all of like the good things that they'll be able to experience as individuals, because something that I'm noticing with them being at home, Well, there's several factors I'm noticing. So the first one is like my son, kind of going through virtual school, like he sees a lot of like what the, typical school day experience is like, with it being, a virtual experience. And he has been asking and kind of like vocalizing to us that he wants to go to school. And I'm not saying that when they make a decision that therefore as parents we just need to like bend to the will of our kids. Like, no. But because that is something that he's been bringing up and saying and communicating to us that he wants, even though I don't think that he completely grasps what it means to be in school, I do think that his opinion is valid and it should be something that we consider. Now, I will also say that even though my sons are together all the time and they have this amazing bonding experience, like they're super close, but um they also like nag each other on, to the point where I think that having a little bit of space between them might be really helpful, because they've also kind of said to me like, "Mom, we want friends." And even though we have other families that we connect with, that we interact with, and we have kids around the same ages, it is not nearly to the same degree or level of what I initially thought or expected to have or to experience being a homeschool family. And granted, there are lots of different things that we could do to like help facilitate that, but there's also comes to a point where in your day-to-day experience you have very limited hours as a parent, and there's like this challenge of, okay, if we add one more thing in, is this to the betterment or the detriment of our family? And a lot of times for the season of life that we are currently in, it would be ultimately to the detriment of what our family needs for the circumstances that we currently have. But I'm also hearing my kids say, and knowing that that is a very valuable part of growing up, and it's a very like, everyone needs to have friends. It's a very big necessity to their life. I know that they would have that experience if I put them in public school. I also know that putting them in public school means that they would have a little bit more autonomy away from each other, because they're always around each other. They share a room, they experience their entire day together. Ultimately, as they're getting a little bit older, they're finding more ways to like pick on each other and nag each other and egg each other on, versus I think like experiencing some of these external factors that they as a person then have to stretch and, create some resilience in their character, because they can't react the same way to someone else as they would to their brother. Even though we as parents are there to facilitate it, their character is going to have to develop in a completely different way than just how they interact with us as their parents, because we have a different level of authority over them as individuals, as what they're going to be able to experience in the world, where like their teachers have a different authorities over their life, but their teachers have to respond to them in a completely separate way than us as our parents can respond to them. And I think that that's super important as my kids age, to teach them when is appropriate and how it is appropriate to respond to different authority figures in their life, and not just the fact that like you have to obey our rules because you live in our house. Like, no, there are other people in your life that you need to obey because they're giving you righteous instruction and good instruction that you should choose to obey. I think the thing that I'm a little bit concerned about as a mom putting them in public school is, of course, like the adjustment period, all of a sudden being gone out of the home. Right now, their entire experience is being at home like all day, every day, pretty much. So how challenging will it be for them to all of a sudden like be in school, 5 days a week, the majority of the day? One of my sons does have a little bit of separation anxiety, and we are trying to put him in different situations right now to kind of like help hone his skills to know like this, you're in this experience for a very limited time with other people, and you can adjust and know that you're okay, because we're going to come back and get you. I just want to make sure that I'm setting my kids up for a success, and I'm also kind of like I know that this is going to be so good for them, but I'm also like scared, like as a parent I can no longer control every single aspect of their life. That's just part of life. That's part of letting our kids grow up. They're going to hear things that they don't hear at home. They're going to experience things they don't experience at home. They're going to meet people, and people are going to say and do things that we won't think are appropriate for them doing at home or doing out in the world. And I think because of the ages that they are now, like this is going to be really good for them, because then we can have these conversations when they get home after they've had these experiences as to like shaping and directing their character and behavior in certain ways. and how can they, when they are faced with that out in the world, and what is an appropriate way to react to those words and those behaviors, because they're going to experience that their entire life, right? And that not everyone has to think the exact same way you do. They're going to experience other thoughts and beliefs out there in the world that needs to be respected, even though they may not share or hold that same belief or opinion. We were talking about this with one of our other friends because we had thought like they had also transitioned from the homeschool experience into public school, and come to find out that they actually had their kids in public school all along. But they ended up saying something to my husband and I that was really incredibly helpful for us to hear. And that was like, the majority of Americans experience public school. And after he said that, I realized like I was majority homeschooled, but I did have like a public school experience as well. And even though I had an adjustment period where I was like, this is all new, like I'm super apprehensive, I'm super withdrawn, like I don't know about this. Once that became my normal experience, like I loved school. Were there parts of it that I really didn't enjoy? Yes. But also there were certain things that I was able to experience through my public school experience that I probably would not have gotten the opportunity to have if I was solely homeschooled. As a mom, I want to give my kids the best experience, and I want to have them have multiple different experiences and lots of different exposure to different things, like different things that I personally cannot provide to them in our home or just like through the resources that we currently have. Can all of that happen as a homeschooler? Yes. But I think that right now in the season of life that I'm in, maybe public school is ultimately like the best option for them right now. It has been really nice that now they're going to be entering school at the same time, that it's not like I'm taking one of them to school and one of them has to stay home with me. Like they're going to be able to experience school together, which even though they're experiencing school in separate classrooms, I do hope that this helps create a tighter bond together, that like they're going through the same experience at the same time, that even though right now they may not be able to necessarily relate to each other or they care to relate to each other in that way, I do hope that as they grow older, because they're in school having these very similar experiences, it is another opportunity for them to like create some camaraderie together as brothers. I'm also really glad though that we have had this homeschool virtual experience, because knowing that my sons may need some additional help or support in certain like subjects or like grasping certain skills, what we've actually decided to do is for my soon to be kindergartner, we've actually enrolled him in the virtual kindergarten school so that way he can kind of go through that during the summer. And then when he enters school, a lot of it will be repeat information that will just kind of like hopefully create like a better understanding, and he won't be lost in the background of school. That just like his schooling reinforces what he's already learned in a new environment where maybe he learns a different concept or a different thought or like the same information in a different way. So right now my thought is like they'll go to school in the fall for the normal like school experience, and then over the summer, since we can pause their homeschool subscription plan, is that we'll kind of have them go through like summer school courses where they will get additional help on some of the like subjects that maybe they struggle with or they need additional help with prior to the grade that they're going into, so they have a little bit of extra support. And also knowing that some schools don't completely finish their whole curriculum in the year, they've already been introduced to some of these subjects through the summer from their virtual school program, than being completely lost when they go into school in the fall. But yeah, I would just really love to hear your thoughts. Is there something that was really challenging for your kids when they went into public school, or my concerns and like the things that I think will be really well for them? I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, and we can continue the conversation in the comments.